I want you to look at this. This is a $3 clay pot. Nothing fancy, no batteries, no app, no subscription. And I'm going to show you how this little thing could completely change the way you water your garden and cut your water usage by up to 70%. I first stumbled on this method when I was losing plants left and right during a dry summer and my water bill was through the roof. I tried drip lines, soaker hoses, you name it, nothing was consistent. Then I found this technique, one that's been around for literally 4,000 years, and I haven't stressed about watering since. Stick with me because by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly how to set this up in your own garden, why it works better than anything sold at your local hardware store, and why nobody in the gardening industry is telling you about it. What exactly is an Olla? So what are we talking about here? It's called an Olla, that's O-L-L-A, and it's the Spanish word for pot. But the concept goes back way further than Spain. Here's the simple version. You take an unglazed clay pot, bury it in your garden bed, fill it with water, cover the top, and walk away. That's it. The clay is porous, meaning it has tiny microscopic holes in the walls. Water slowly seeps through those holes directly into the soil around the pot, right where your plant roots are sitting. No sprinklers spraying water into the air to evaporate, no surface puddles, no runoff rolling down a slope. The water goes straight underground and stays there, available to your plants whenever they need it. What makes this genuinely remarkable is that the system adjusts itself automatically. When the surrounding soil is dry, like during a heat wave, the seepage speeds up. When the soil has enough moisture, the seepage slows down almost completely. It's essentially a self-regulating watering system made out of dirt and fire. This is older than you think. Now here's the part that blew my mind when I first learned this. Olla irrigation didn't start with any clever inventor or tech startup. Archaeologists have found buried clay irrigation vessels in China's Yellow River region dating back to 2000 BC. That's 4,000 years ago. The same technique popped up independently in northern Africa, ancient Peru, and among indigenous communities in the American Southwest. These civilizations weren't talking to each other across oceans, and yet they all landed on the exact same solution. That tells you something important. When a method works that well, humans figure it out. A Roman agricultural writer actually documented farmers burying clay pots across the Mediterranean in the 1st century, describing it as if it were completely common knowledge at the time. Not a discovery, just what farmers did. So why don't we do it today? That's where things get a little frustrating, and I'll get to that in just a second. Let me break down what's actually happening underground, because this isn't just folk wisdom. The science backs it up completely. When you bury an Olla, plant roots literally grow toward it. Roots are attracted to moisture, and they can sense the slow, steady seep coming from the clay. Over days and weeks, a dense network of fine root hairs forms right around the pot walls. Your plants are essentially drinking directly from the source. Because water is delivered right at root level, not on the surface, there's almost zero evaporation loss. Studies from the University of Arizona, New Mexico State, and UC Davis have all compared Ollas against drip irrigation in controlled conditions. The results? Ollas consistently used 50 to 70% less water than drip systems. And the plants? They grew deeper roots, showed better drought resistance, and produced higher yields. NASA researchers even tested this method between 2018 and 2020 as part of research into growing food on Mars. Their thinking was simple. On another planet, you can't afford to waste a single drop of water, and you can't rely on systems that need replacement parts. The Olla checked every box. If it's good enough for Mars, it's more than good enough for your backyard tomatoes. Why nobody told you about this? Okay, so here's the part I think about a lot. If this method is so effective, why is every garden center stocked floor to ceiling with plastic drip lines and soaker hoses instead of simple clay pots labeled as irrigation tools? To understand that, you have to go back to the 1940s. After World War II ended, factories that had been producing explosives needed new products to sell. The same chemical compounds used in bombs became the base for synthetic fertilizers. Big agriculture companies pivoted fast, and suddenly, farming became tied to a product you had to keep buying every single season. Here's the catch, though. Fertilizer only works efficiently when soil moisture stays consistent, and Ollas happen to keep soil moisture very consistent. That means plants grown with Ollas need less fertilizer overall. On the flip side, when soil dries out between waterings, nutrients get locked up and plants start showing deficiencies. Stressed plants need more fertilizer, and that's where sales come from. Drip irrigation, invented in the 1960s, fit perfectly into this model. It looks efficient on the surface, and it's a billion-dollar industry built on plastic tubing that clogs, degrades in sunlight, and needs replacing every few years. Every component is proprietary. Every repair requires a trip back to the store. Nobody banned Ollas. Nobody had to. They just quietly disappeared from the conversation, not taught in agricultural programs, not stocked in stores as irrigation tools. And because a 4,000-year-old clay pot can't be patented, no company had any reason to market it. The pot you walk past at the garden center for $5, labeled as a planter, is the exact same object. The only thing missing is the label that says what it can actually do. All right, let's get practical. Here's exactly how to set this up, and I promise it is easier than assembling anything from a big box store. What you need: an unglazed terracotta pot. No glaze on the outside. That's critical because glaze blocks the pores. Size can range from a small 1-quart pot up to a 5-gallon one depending on your garden bed. A lid or flat stone to cover the opening. This prevents evaporation from the top and keeps out mosquitoes. A shovel or trowel. Water. That's it. Step by step. Step 1. Dig a hole in your garden bed deep enough so the pot sits with its rim right at or just slightly above soil level. You want the whole body of the pot underground. Step 2. Set the pot in the hole and pack the soil back around it snugly so there are no air gaps. Step 3. Fill the pot all the way with water. Step 4. Cover the opening with your lid or stone. Step 5. Plant your seedlings or seeds within a foot or two of the pot, depending on its size. That's genuinely the whole setup. About 5 minutes of work. How often do you refill it? A 1-gallon olive will typically water a roughly 3-foot radius around it. A 5-gallon can cover a 10-foot circle. In hot, dry conditions, you might refill every 3 to 4 days. In cooler or more humid weather, once a week or even less. Some gardeners in mild climates go 2 weeks between refills. You'll learn your own garden's rhythm pretty quickly. Just peek under the lid, and if the water level is dropped, top it off. Bonus benefits most gardeners don't expect. First, almost no fungal disease. Powdery mildew, blight, leaf spot, all of these thrive when water sits on leaves and stems. Because Olla watering happens entirely underground, your foliage stays dry. I've seen a dramatic reduction in those kinds of problems in my own beds since switching. Second, deeper, stronger root systems. When you water from above, roots tend to stay shallow because that's where the moisture is. Olla watering draws roots downward toward the pot. A tomato plant watered from the surface might develop a root system 6 inches deep. The same plant watered by an Olla can push roots 2 feet down. Deeper roots mean plants that survive heat, drought, and dry spells far better. Third, less weeding. Because moisture is concentrated underground near your plants rather than spread across the whole surface, weed seeds in surrounding areas don't get the same encouragement to sprout. You're not watering your weeds. And fourth, longevity. A well-made, unglazed terracotta pot buried in soil can last decades. I've read accounts of Ollas still in use after 20 or 30 years. Compare that to plastic drip tubing that cracked after 2 or 3 summers. Real people using this right now. This isn't just theory. Gardeners all over are already using this, especially in water-restricted areas. Urban gardeners in cities like Phoenix and Los Angeles, where water restrictions are getting tighter every year, have turned to Ollas out of necessity. One home gardener in Tucson documented an entire summer where she refilled her Ollas twice a week and never once picked up a hose. Her vegetable garden outperformed her neighbors, even those with installed drip systems that kept failing. Permaculture farms in the American Southwest use Ollas exclusively, reporting meaningful cuts to their utility costs season after season. And in Spain, where the practice never fully disappeared, you can still find rural gardeners burying pots the way their parents and grandparents did. No apps, no timers, no monthly hardware store runs. Here's what I want you to take away from this. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on irrigation equipment to keep your garden thriving through a dry summer. You need a clay pot, a hole in the ground, and about 5 minutes. This method watered crops across 4,000 years of human civilization. It passed NASA's requirements for extraterrestrial farming, and right now it's sitting on a shelf at your local garden center, mislabeled as a planter. If you try this in your garden, I genuinely want to hear how it goes. Drop your experience in the comments below. What are you growing? Where do you live? How often are you refilling? That kind of real-world data helps everyone watching. If this video gave you something new to think about, hit that subscribe button. I'm here every week sharing practical, no-nonsense gardening methods that actually work, especially for beginners getting started with growing their own food. And share this one with a friend who's been struggling with keeping their garden watered. They'll thank you for it. I'll see you in the next one.